Hello, my friend. Welcome back to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. I am Simona, and I'm very excited that you're joining me today for this conversation because I am telling you, it is a complete mindset shift or game changer conversation. And ultimately, I know you're going to walk away from this conversation just thinking differently and knowing things about yourself differently and being able to access different parts of who you are in a way that is aligned and that empowers you as your truest and most authentic self. Today on the podcast, I have the most incredible, in my opinion, motivator, and he's just real. He's just such a real guy. He's just such an honest and down to earth person. And what we talked about today was entrepreneurship. We talked about parenthood. We talked about relationships, how to make relationships stronger, and how to own businesses in a way that makes sense for you. And also stepping into your power unapologetically and being who you are and accessing who you are on a soul level. So today, my guest is Navid Moosa, and he's a seasoned real estate agent turned investor with over 20 years of experience. He's got a keen eye for opportunity and a talent for identifying trends, and he's successfully invested in various industries and built a diverse portfolio of businesses. He has so many different businesses that he runs, lots of different investments, and he knows what it takes to build businesses, have happy relationships, have great relationships with his kids. And I think ultimately these are the things that we strive for in life. So we talk about how to find happiness in all of these different areas. And I know you're going to gain a lot from our conversation together. I'm really looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on the show, on the episode. And be sure to leave a rating and review of the podcast wherever you're listening, so I know how much you loved it. And feel free to reach out to us also and connect with us directly to let us know how you like this conversation. All of the links are in the notes below. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation today. Navid, welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you. And we are going to have an amazing conversation today. I say this every single time we start recording a podcast episode on this show, but my listener knows that we do not prep questions around here except for two main questions that I'm going to ask you. Everything else is very fluid, and we're just going to have a conversation today. So my first question for you is, what does happiness mean to you?
Options.
Oh, I have never heard this as a response. Tell me more.
The option to go into the office or not go into the office that day you wake up. The
Mm-hmm.
option to, I'm going to cook dinner or I'm going to order out. Option to catch a movie at a matinee at 2 o'clock on a random Thursday afternoon. Like that's
Hmm.
happiness. That's
I
that's how I look at it.
I love that. And even just the thing you just said about the movies, I think we have this like societal conditioning, I'll call it, that we can only do things at certain times. Okay. Like you can only go to the movies in the evening, that you have to sit at a desk from 9 to 5, that the only path for you is to be an entrepreneur. The only path for you is to get married and have children. Right. So I think we like create in our minds this idea of this is only what we can do. You know what I mean? Like, this is only what we can do. So, you are someone who completely does not live like that at all. How do you begin to start really doing the things that you want to do on your own time when everybody else around you tells you you got to do it a specific way?
So step one is being brutally honest with yourself.
Hmm.
And by that I mean, to your point, the society has, we've been ingrained and trained to do something all our lives from birth, right? Just do right, say yes, say no, say please, all these other good stuff right there. Well, you now have to make your own world. Okay.
Hmm.
You do that by setting boundaries. You're going to hurt people. You're going, not physically, you're going to mentally hurt people. You're going to sever relationships and all that. It's just organically going to happen, but you have to be selfish for the self help or the self health, I should say. That's step one.
Okay.
You have to balance. You have a tough conversation with yourself because, look, none of us, if you have a healthy relationship with your parents, want to say no to our parents,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when growing up, so I'm one of seven boys, no sisters. All kids, right?
Well, my your
All
poor
brothers.
mom. Your poor
Yeah,
mom.
exactly. Strong woman, very, very strong woman. But yeah, poor mom. Especially come dinner time because we were all big boys. We all love to eat. And I'm only five. My mom is 5 foot even. I'm 5'6". I'm one of the shorter. My dad was 6'4".
Oh, wow.
But I was 6'4", 250 pounds. He was a man's man. He was a big guy. And so one day I remember we were watching basketball, and it was like the team was like 9, 10 points down, and he changed. And I'm like, and I'm only like sub 10 years old. And I remember telling him, I remember getting upset, like, Dad, why'd you change? The game's not over. He was like, they're going to lose. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, you never know. They can come back and win. Well, that was a very historic game now because in the last 15 seconds, whatever, one guy scored three three-pointers, 9 points, and came back and won the game in the last 15 seconds. Right?
Wow.
So that was a game that's still talked about to this day, just in general in the sports world. He goes back and flips the channel, and the 76ers come and win the game. And so I said, see, Dad, you're wrong. Right now, in my household, you don't say that. Right? You don't say, see, Dad, you're wrong. I'm pretty sure my brother started writing my eulogy at that point. Like, yeah, he's dead. He's not making it out at that point. He's done. Right? And so that kind of triggered me. I'm almost 50 years old, and it triggered me. So I'm like, yeah, I was like less than 10 when I thought that way. That I just because you're my mom and dad doesn't mean you're right.
Hmm.
Doesn't be key. I don't have to say yes to you because you're my mom and dad. And so that I took that to, I don't want to say another level, but that's how I take my relationships now.
Hmm.
It's like just because I'm 20 years in the business, I don't care. It's not that I don't care because I'm being disrespectful. It's just that your 20 years, that could just be 20 years of movement, not 20 years of progress.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean anything.
That is so important to highlight. There's a
But I mean,
difference.
think about it, right? I can have a piece of paper in my hand, left to right, left to right, left to right. What'd you do? Man, I was busy. Well, what did you do? I put a piece of paper in my left hand, put it in my right hand. I was busy. But I did nothing with it. I didn't progress anymore. That piece of paper was always the same piece of paper. So when these people, so that's the thing, right? Just because someone comes into your life and says, "Hey, you should follow me. You should do this," because I've got 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Okay, but what did you do in that time span? Like, let's talk about what you actually did.
Right.
And then when you start getting, and some people get insulted. Well, how dare you question me? I'm your elder, or I'm someone who's more experienced. I have
Right.
all these accolades, all these degrees on my wall. I have all these trophies. Someone gave them to you. I didn't give you shit. So it doesn't matter to me about those things. Congratulations, and I'm happy for you. I authentically
Hmm.
am, but it doesn't matter to me. So once you start having these honest conversations with people, you're going to offend people. You're going to sever some ties, and that's okay because then you don't really want those people in your world. And
It's
that
so true.
allows you to start setting your schedule that, hey, listen, I'm working today, I'm not working today. And you're with me or you're not. And it
Hmm.
just becomes a little bit abrasive at first, I'm not gonna lie. It is
Yeah.
a lot of people to take on, but once they understand you don't come from a space of malice, you're not coming for to hurt them, you're just coming from a space where you self-respect, then they go, oh, I get it. I get it. You're protecting yourself. You're making sure that your stuff's protected, and this is
Hmm.
how you're doing it.
Hmm.
And then they buy in.
Okay, I love this so much because I'm someone who's always said I do have more people pleaser tendencies. I just do, and like I am also someone I come from a big Italian family, what you grow up in that sort of like traditional mindset, culture, all that what your parents do and say is the only way, And it's taken me I'm going to be 32, and I want to say it's taken me 31 years to realize to realize that I don't have to listen to what my parents say in order to live a life that is authentic to myself. And with that comes a lot of change, and then with that also comes a lot of, I don't want to use the word like not confusion, but like more surprised. I think people are like surprised that it's like, oh, wait, what do you mean you're going to make this big life choice? Or what do you mean you're going to change your life and do this? And it's kind of like I'm doing it and I'm not asking you for permission for it?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, and it's so hard. But what you said there is, and you kind of, you said this, and I don't know, like you said this without saying it. So if this does not click for you, like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
For sure.
when you are someone who's a people pleaser, what's missing, in my opinion, now that I'm hearing you speak, is this idea of self respect. you don't have respect for yourself if you're people pleasing.
That's exactly. I mean, did I say that? No. Did I mean that? Absolutely.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same
Yeah.
page.
No, we are. We are because, all right. So, I mean, there's a generational gap between you and I, right? There's a good 20 years difference in us, or close to it. But the message has never changed, right? People say, "Hey, go do you. Take care of yourself." You know what? If that's what you need to do to protect yourself, you go ahead and do that. Just take
Mm-hmm.
it. But the minute you do something that they don't agree with, oh, she's changed. That's not the person I knew. So really what they mean is go take care of yourself as long as you don't alienate me in the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
You can alienate anybody else. Just don't alienate me, please.
Mm-hmm.
But then other than that, you can take care of yourself. Like I tell my kids all the time, you can ask a question. Just don't be surprised if you get an answer you don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So ask away. I don't care what you ask, but doesn't mean you're going to get the answer you want. Same concept. So when you're take care of yourself, like people tell you to do, mental health, mindset Mondays and mental health is important. And it is. All those things are important. But it's important only if you don't alienate them or screw with them or mess up the relationship they have with you
Yeah.
because they need you to be there for them whenever
Or
they
the
need you.
story, like the story that they have in their mind about who you are and how you are.
That's
Because
right.
people, like, we're constantly trying to place things. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, how do you know that person? Oh, I know them from here. Okay. Like, and, who is this person in your life? And like, how are you related? Or how do we know each other? And like, how does this business idea work? And how does this, whatever it is fit? How do all these pieces come together? Like, I feel like we're constantly trying to, like, I mean, at least for myself, I'm constantly trying to just like, you place people. Oh,
Yeah.
like you and I met, we met through Justin and I met through here. You know what I mean? Like we went here, we did this and all this stuff, and it becomes like this story. And then as soon as someone goes outside of the story in your mind about who and what somebody else is, it doesn't fit anymore. And then there's worry and there's fear and there's confusion and then there's judgment, and then people take all this stuff and they put that on you as it's something that you need to hold and to bear. And I think that impacts you in life. And then I also think it impacts you in business, because how do you make sound decisions when you're always listening to everybody else?
Yeah. No, and you can't. You can take the advice. You can say, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I will definitely take consideration. Give the standard corporate line and move on with it. Doesn't matter if you're a
I need
big
to
business.
adopt that on my, that's my
Even,
next tattoo. Thanks for
yeah.
your advice. I
Yeah,
don't
thanks
need to take
for yeah,
it.
exactly. And it doesn't matter if you're a big business or small business. It's the same thing, right? Like, I mean, I can go on, but yeah, you hit it on the head. It's very hard to do it when you first start out, but once you find your voice and the confidence and the comfort of saying no, I'm telling you, it just everything just kind of just like pops out like no, 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 and you'll
Hmm.
be realize that people are stronger than they give themselves credit for.
Hmm.
And so when you tell them no, to you, you're like, oh my gosh, I just rejected their whole life. No, you just said no to them in this one pocket of life. They'll get over it. You think you're the first person who told them no? No, they'll get over it. They'll be fine.
I love that. You're connecting so many little like wires in my brain today. I truly believe that people come into your life when they're meant to, and conversations take place and happen when you need them. And so this is just it's just really refreshing, because people say that you can have whatever you want, and people say you can do whatever you want and you can have whatever type of conversation you want, like all of the above. But I feel like it's a whole different thing to actually live it. Like it's easier said than done. Like it's easier said to do all of these things than to actually do them and put action behind them. Like that is a whole different ballgame, because then you actually have to show up.
So I will say, Simona, that the more confident you get in your decision making process,
Hmm.
it does become easier.
Hmm.
At first, you're right. At first, it is difficult because you're, like you said, like, I'm a people pleaser. I don't
Yeah.
want to hurt feelings. So how
Yeah.
do I do that? But once you realize that you yourself went through struggles and you were able to you are where you are now because of those struggles. Everyone else is going to struggle. You may cause them that struggle, but you may also cause that growth,
Hmm.
right? So think about it. I have staff. I have about 50 employees overall when it's all said and done. I just hired a personal assistant in the past year rather, sorry. And I caught myself, and she actually brought it to my attention. I was like, you know what? I want her to show up at this one date and time. And I was like, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. I think I have someone else. She said, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I know you're busy. You have this at home. And she said, don't use my personal life against me. This is my job and I'm going to do it. And I will deal with that stuff later on. I was like,
Wow.
whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm scared. I'm like, okay.
You're like, I made the right hire. Yes, I did.
And that's exactly what I said. And she said something to me. I just looked at her. She said, well, you said you didn't want a yes man. I'm like, you're right. I didn't. I did not want. Right. So she said that. She was like, you say you didn't want a yes man. I said, you're right. I didn't. I don't want to surround myself. I've never saw. I did, but not anymore. I don't surround
Yeah,
myself by yes people. So no. So she was like, do not treat me any different because I have XYZ going on. I will handle that, but I'm also going to handle my job. She was like, so you let me deal with it. And
that's
that was
crazy.
it. Yeah, like boom, right? I'm like, whoa. And it made me reflect because I did have a tendency. If I see one of my staffers, because I treat everyone like family, going through some hardship, I want to step in and help them out so they don't go through the hardship. But I realized I can't do that because to me, it's hardship. It's actually growth. It's actually growth. So I need to step back, keep my mouth shut, and walk away and let them figure out how they screwed up the job, how they need to fix it. And it
Yep.
may not be the way I want it, but it's going to be that they figured it out. And there's a sense of accomplishment in that. I just have to be patient with them and let them figure it out.
I love that, especially as someone who leads a team. Like I have a team of three, four. I would say like yeah, like three core members on my team, and then one who does like more project based work. And it all comes down to letting people make mistakes because people
Yeah.
have to make mistakes in order to grow. And sometimes there's so it's actually been really interesting. It's been a really interesting exercise for me as like a business owner and a leader of this team that when something doesn't get done or if something doesn't get done on time or if something needs a redo or whatever it is, the first thing that I look at is how did I fail them as their leader? Like if they didn't get whatever it was done, what did I do that what could I have done differently to help make it easier? Was I unclear? Did I not give the right instructions? Like whatever. So I go through myself first and then I figure out is there anything within myself that I could have done differently? And then I go back and I let them fix it. And it's interesting because I've had people tell me, well, why wouldn't you like at some point you gotta like let someone go or you gotta whatever, and I'm like, but that doesn't feel right to me. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. So there's a bit of like I think there's a bit of like discernment as well in between like letting people make mistakes and letting them grow and like knowing in your heart that it will be okay and it will get to the level that you needed to, and or just deciding to make decisions and you're not really thinking about them intentionally before you're making them.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a level of, there's a level of failure, right?
Mm.
So, okay, here's an example I give. Yes, I want everybody to learn and they're going to learn through mistakes. At the same time, I'm also going to not let you play in traffic, right? I'm not going to let you play in traffic because I know for a fact it ain't going to work out pretty good for anybody,
Yeah, no.
especially you, right? However, if you want to go ahead and learn how to drive the stick shift because you've been driving an automatic this whole time, go ahead and drive the stick shift, and you're going to realize that it's fun, but it's a little more work to do,
Yep.
right? So it's just one of those it's, I don't want to say it's pain management, but it is a
Mm-hmm.
failure management sort of thing, right? Hey, listen,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna bop up here, you're gonna bop up there. Now, as we are business owners, right? As we grow our companies and stuff, yes, it's the business is our baby, right? So we're like, I did it this way for so many years at work. Can you not do that? It's very natural to do that. And
Yeah.
you said something actually that I don't know if you give you credit for this, but you should definitely give yourself more credit for this. Is the fact that yeah, you look at something and you look at people and you're like, yeah, I don't really want you to screw this up, but guess what? Go ahead and screw it up. Screw it up. You'll learn it. I'm here for you. And
Yeah.
it's an instinct to be a nurturing individual. I believe every entrepreneur, it doesn't matter male or female, every entrepreneur, period, across the board, is someone who likes to nurture
Mm.
in general.
Mm.
So it's very instinctive to say, hey, no, I've done that. It doesn't work this way, so I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to waste time on it because I did it.
Yeah.
It's very natural when you first start. And I did that. I did that so many times with, I have about half a dozen different businesses. And I've
Yeah.
done that in almost every single one except for the last two. The last two, I'm like,
Wow.
I got it. Go ahead and just do it. You'll figure out on your own. I need to go over here.
Is it
So
because you were more confident as a leader that
yeah,
allowed you to do that?
absolutely.
Interesting.
More confident as a leader, more confident as a, I don't want to say, more confident as a, so I don't use the word boss. We can't
No,
use
me
boss.
neither.
Yeah, we don't use the boss at all in our environments.
No.
Management or leader, and that's it.
Yeah.
So more confident as a leader, more confident as a manager. And the difference is this: when you lead, you lead on the upper the shelf, if you will, where management, there's different levels of it, right? So I think as a leader, as a manager, I think as you get more confident in that you just saying, all right, well, I told you what to do, and it's up to you if you want to do it or not. Next.
Right. Right.
That's it.
Right. It's so true. Okay. And so, in terms of, I really want to talk to you about this today, actually. You have built wealth in so many ways. Okay. You have it within your relationships. This is my assumption. Your relationships, your family, your kids, your businesses, and all that. It is very challenging to, and maybe this is my perception of it. It can be very challenging when you're building new things, especially from the ground up and you're starting something new. There's a certain amount of time that's required in getting it to where you need it to be, you know? What did you learn through building these businesses that allowed you to keep having strong relationships at home? Because I think it can be really challenging for people. You get so consumed about all the stuff that you're doing every day, you know?
So I have two kids. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
I've married for 20 years. Been with my wife for 28 years.
That's amazing.
Um,
Good for you.
and thank you.
That's incredible.
All I can tell you, and this is going to sound very, very harsh again.
I
Okay,
like it.
not many people are going to agree with this. Not many people are going to like this. But I've actually said this to my wife, and I said, "I don't need you." I told her. I said, "I don't need you. I need my kids." I said, "I don't need you." I said, "But I want you." And that's what I tell her, what does that have to do with business, Navid? Well, here's why. A lot of times it's very easy to do something when someone tells us to do it, because if it doesn't go the way we want it, we can point the finger saying, "Oh, well, you told me to do it," and that's it. If you want to grow these different businesses, it is on you, right? Like you said, if your employees didn't do something, you look at yourself first. Did I give them the right resources? Maybe in proper direction? What did I do? So my wife and I went through a very rough patch, a couple of rough patches while I'm going through all this stuff, because
Mm.
she's only known the 9 to 5 cubicle life. I can't stand that life. I want nothing to do with it. And I've tried it. So I know what it's about, and I know it's not meant for the human being.
Yeah.
So what happened was we got into it. We got into an argument, her and I. And I said, listen, if this is not going to work, then this is not going to work. About 3 weeks, I'll get over you. Yeah. I thought,
How
listen,
long were you together at that point? Three. Woo.
no, at that time we were together. So here's the thing. We actually met in high school. We met in high school, and we just got married and stuff like that. We got married, and I think I was 25, 20, whatever. No, I was, how old was I? I don't know. I think I was almost 30 years old when we got married.
Okay.
But I knew her for 8 years prior to that, right? So
Wow.
yeah, exactly. So what I told her was this. I said, look, I did 21 years without you. I can do 21 more, right? I said, so if this don't work out, this doesn't work out, give about 3 weeks, I'll be over you, stuff like that. And she didn't like that,
Of
which
course.
obviously who would? I mean, come on,
No,
duh,
no
who
one would
would?
like that.
Who would like that, right? And I said, but here's why I said that. Someone had to understand. This is why I said that was with so much confidence, was that I know every night, without a shadow of a doubt, when I put my head on that pillow, that I've been the absolute best fucking husband I could be to you, and the best to this best person to best father to these kids that I could be, every
Mm,
single day. And if you don't understand that, or if you can't appreciate that, that is not my problem. It's not my job to make you happy. That is your job to make yourself happy.
hmm.
I'm to make you happier. You're to make yourself happy. There's a difference there. Now that takes a level of arrogance, takes a level of confidence, and it takes a level of self-respect. Now, understand when I told her this, I'm not yelling, I'm not raising my voice. I've never, ever, ever called my wife out of any name outside of her own given name. Right? I've never, ever raised my voice. I've never raised anything to my wife except a bouquet of flowers. That's it. Okay. So when I say this, depending where you are in your own personal relationship, the royal you could say, well, that dude's an asshole. How dare you talk to your wife like that? I spoke to my wife in even keel. I spoke to her respect, and she understood where I was coming from. Did she
Mm-hmm.
like it? Absolutely not. Did she respect it? Absolutely yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once we got to that level, it was we since then that discussion we've had some other rough discussions, don't get me wrong, about finances and the amount I work and what I need to do. She has now been locked. We have now, sorry, correction. We have now been in lockstep with each other. Boom. We finish each other's sentences. We finish each other's messages. We are just in lockstep. She knows when I say, hey, babe, last night I had to work. I'm working on a live webinar thing next week. And I said, hey, babe, I need to go into work tonight to the office, but I got it at home. Now, all I said was I got it at home. That's all I said. Here's what that means between her and I. That means the kids are home, the homework has been started, dinner is ready, everything is set to go. She needs to come home and sit down and just eat and clean the
Beautiful.
kitchen. That's it, right?
Beautiful.
28 years together, and we are probably stronger now than we've ever been because of respect. No disrespect to God and love, but we respect each other so much that we
Mm-hmm.
know what to do and how to do it without saying a whole bunch of words or going through a whole bunch of dramatic motions.
That's so powerful. And I think that's a piece that a lot of people miss is, first of all, communication is fundamental, whether it's in business, whether it's in a corporate job, whether it's, as a leader to your team, with your spouse and with your kids, right? Communication and being able to have a level of emotional intelligence to understand what the person is saying to you when you're sitting down having a hard conversation is a skill. Like, it is not something that's easy for a lot of people to access. And I think that it takes a different type of mentality in order to be able to understand where someone is coming from when you have that type of conversation. And I think that nowadays, that's why you see a lot of things start to fail, especially relationships and all that kind of stuff, because people don't want to communicate to the level that you need to in order to make something work. It is very rare,
Mhm.
and it takes someone's awareness to be able to understand, like, this is what needs to happen in order for X, Y, and Z to follow. And the person sitting on the being the receiver of this, like, of the statement or conversation or whatever, that person also has to have a level of emotional intelligence and awareness.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And that is the key. And if they don't have that, game
you
over.
got it. Yeah, because we take information however wherever we are in our life at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It, not to be religious, but if you
No,
follow
it's
any
fine.
particular religion in general, right, whether it's the Quran, the Torah, or the Bible, it's all open to interpretation for the most part, right? So
Right.
that's the same thing. If you are in year 5 of your business, right, and I'm in year 25 of my business, for example, or vice versa, you're going to take some of the information I give to you and be like, Navi, that's ridiculous. That doesn't work in today's day and age. That business model is old. It's gone. Okay. And then 20 years from now, you'll be like, oh shit, this is
He
what
was
Navi
right.
was talking about. Oh my gosh. And that's okay. I do not believe in late bloomers. I don't believe in that saying. I believe that you just weren't ready to receive it.
Right.
That's all. Once
Right.
you're ready, you'll take it and you run with it and go. And by the way, the hope, just as confident as I am with telling my wife that, she's as every bit as confident in telling
Telling you
me
right back.
that say, hey, listen, 3 weeks, shit, I'll be over you in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like
She's like, I don't think so. It's not even going to take me a second.
exactly right. So, but we have that. She is very confident. Like I go out all the time. We go out all the time. Right? We go to the conventions. We do this that. I haven't worn my wedding ring in about 12 years.
Oh, wow.
I haven't worn it. She knows it. It sits up there every single day, stuff like that. You think she says anything? No.
Mm-mm.
She doesn't care. She was like, listen, I know we are married, and if you're gonna go do something, it's because not because of a ring, it's because you want to go do it. She was like, and I've
Exactly.
given you no reason to do anything. She was like, so that's fine. It
Exactly.
blows people's mind
Mm-hmm.
when they're like, and you don't wear a wedding band? No. Your wife's okay with that? Yeah, she's very secure in our relationship and we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's that label and the degree, it's all that stuff that people want to put on saying, well, if you don't do this, you can't have this. Bullshit.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. And I think that this is just like it's just such an interesting perspective, because I think that, again, going back to labels of what people put on situations and people and things and stories and all this stuff, you essentially live your life based off of other people's stories, and it has no hold in your life. You know what I mean? Like you can sit and make a story about, oh, he doesn't wear his wedding ring, his marriage must be terrible. Meanwhile, it's like the strongest you've ever been in your life. You know what I mean? And that is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, I mean, again, there's generational thoughts in that
For sure.
process of everything,
For
right?
sure.
So, wedding, business owners, it doesn't make a difference, right? It's all
Yeah.
generational process. Here's what worked
Yeah.
for me. Here's what works for that.
Yeah.
People laugh at me because I still have my guys, on the real estate side, do cold calls and do door knocking. They're like, "Psh, that business is gone. We all sit at home and we do everything from the web." And I'm like, great. That's less competition for me than out there doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
That's all
When
that is.
there's so much power in like even just like networking and being out there in person. Like as a podcast producer, my whole business is online. You know what I mean? Like, everything we do is
Yeah,
online. Some of the stuff is in person. Like I go to studio and we set up studios and we do all that. We film in person. Like we do all that. Like we do all of the things. And it's awesome and I love it. And I still go to networking meetings in town and I still put myself in different groups and rooms and spaces with people because that's how you meet people. I go to conferences. I like to be active in this space because otherwise, how do you learn and how do you meet people and how do you make new connections and how do you build and how you grow? Not even just build your business and build your revenue, grow as a person. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You can only grow as your business only grows as far as you do as a person. And you having this mentality and this mindset that you have is why you have so many successful businesses, because you have the understanding and like the level of emotional awareness and intelligence to understand what all these different things require. And I think that it's something that we're seeing people learn a lot faster nowadays, I think, because of all the whole world of personal development and how accessible it is. But at the same time, I was telling a friend this the other day. I was at like an event type of thing, and I was sitting around the table with a whole bunch of other people, and I felt like I was the only one, and I was the youngest one there. And I felt like I was the only one that had gratitude and a level of awareness as to exactly how my actions impact things in life, and they had none. You know what I mean? And it was
yeah,
a
yeah,
very, very interesting dynamic because these people are like, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, maybe not 50, 20, 30, 40 years older than I am. And yet I was the one sitting there with probably the most awareness out of everyone. It was wild. And I was
yeah.
like, okay, well,
I'll
okay.
be honest. Like, that was probably one of my wake up calls, was what you just said when I'm sitting with people. One of the biggest mistakes was I stopped putting myself in rooms because I did get big headed. I did get overconfident and arrogant to a point where I'm like, I don't need to go here. I can't
Yeah.
learn anything from this. And I kept doing that. And then I felt alone. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
I need to be with more powerful people. Where's the powerful people at? And it's like, jackass, they're all around you. You just think you're above them, right? So I had to humble
Mm.
myself. I mean, from almost filing bankruptcy twice, hiding my car from,
Whoa.
oh yeah, almost had to filing bankruptcy twice, hiding my car so it wouldn't get repoed, like going through all that stuff, almost getting divorced, just all these things and whatever. So it was like, dude, you're not as good as you think you are. you know, check yourself.
Yeah.
Check yourself, find out what's out there and stuff like that. And that's it. And I would say that, to your kudos to you for recognizing that. So earlier
Thanks.
in your only be five, 5 to 10 years in the business, that's saying, hey, you know what? I got to put myself in this room. Always got to do and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped putting myself. That was the worst thing I ever did,
Mm-hmm.
was that, because I was drinking my own Kool-Aid,
Yeah. It's
so
so
I
true. It's so true. And I have to say, like, I've only been in business for like officially 3 years. And
wow.
I know, and I always compare, like, is it doing well? Is it not? Is it this? Is it that? Am I doing enough? Am I not? How do I do more? How do I this? How do I that? But I also think that there's just specific timelines for things. And some stuff you just can't rush. And some stuff you just have to sit in and just go through, right? Or can you
Yeah.
accelerate the timeline?
Well, I mean, yeah, probably yes and no to both questions, right? So
True.
as an entrepreneurial spirit, it is in our blood. It is in our DNA
Hmm.
that the minute we say, "Oh, I have 10 minutes. What can I do in those 10 minutes?"
Uh,
We never say, "Hey, I got 10 minutes. I'm just going to relax here and enjoy the present." We don't say that. We go, "Ooh, so my meeting got canceled. So that was a 30-minute meeting. Okay, let me plug it in with this." And then now we take on something. Now we had a 30-minute meeting that got canceled, but what do? We plug it in with something that takes an hour to do. right? That's what happens. That's what happens. We never, why? Because we want more. You said it. What can I do? Can I do more? Can I do more? Can I do more? So when we see a 30-minute gap, we fill it in with a 1 hour task. It's by default. It
Right.
is by default. We all do that. So the advice I would give you, or anyone listening to this, is that listen, if something gets canceled on your schedule and it's 30 minutes or less, take it for yourself.
Mm.
Take it for yourself to sit there and say, okay, let me just sit here, not turn the TV on, maybe go on the front porch, maybe just cuddle up with the book. I don't like to read, so just cuddle up with something, you know, whatever. To just do something for yourself in those 30 minutes. Now, if an hour meeting or an hour session, whatever gets canceled, fine. Do
Yeah.
your best to break it up with something. But my rule of thumb is if something that's scheduled for 30 minutes or less is canceled, I take that time for me.
I like that. I like that a lot. I was even thinking about that today because, as we're recording this, I mean, I always block off an hour, but it's not going to take the full hour. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what can I do with like the last, 15, 20 minutes? And then I'm like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, what's
Yeah.
the point?
Yeah.
It's a really good reminder to just sit back and be present because as entrepreneurs, I think we get in this mindset of more, like you said, like I said, and how often do we actually stop and like look at and be really present and like really grateful for everything that we've built? It's very rare, you
It
know?
is. It is. But that's again, that's in the DNA of an entrepreneur. We
Exactly.
always want that more. We always, how can we do this? How can we do? How can I maximize this, minimize this, whatever it may
Mm-hmm.
be? And we just don't know how to stop and turn it off. And if you don't do it, a higher power is gonna force you to do it, right? So
Oh yeah.
I was hospitalized twice for anxiety.
Wow.
I was
That's
hospitalized twice.
that's
Yeah,
wild.
it's nuts. The first time they thought it was a stroke, right? They didn't know what it was. I was only 30 years old.
Oh
I was
wow.
35 years old. And they were like, okay, what's going on? And I'm like, I remember I was leaving the dealership that was building a dealership with my brother. We just bought the land and developed this, blah, blah. And I'm just trying to get everything done and it's just not working. And I remember we ordered food. And next thing you know, like, I felt weird. I said, I'm going to go home for the day.
Hmm.
I don't feel good. I'm driving home and I had to go pick up my son. And as on the way picking up my son, I couldn't breathe. I had had an anxiety attack. I
Oh
pulled
my
into my
God.
son's elementary school parking lot, and then I just kept honking the horn. I just remember just going like this, just pounding on the horn. And then only thing I remember is pounding the horn. I remember the principal coming up to me and saying, "Mr. Moosa, you okay?" And I just shaking my head. And anything happened after, I have no clue. I woke up in the hospital.
Whoa, I did not know. I have really bad anxiety. I didn't realize that that would be like the
Yeah,
wow.
that was the first time. So think about it. My son, who was between third, fourth grade at the
Yeah,
time, had to see his dad get taken in the hospital from school, from the school
that's
parking lot.
crazy.
Right.
Oh my
So,
God.
and I'm like, I never want to put my family through that again. But I
No.
did, unfortunately. I had another attack, right? So twice I was hospitalized for anxiety attacks, and twice my kids had to see me like that. And I'm
Wow.
just like, I can't do this anymore. So as I said, if you don't find your moments to relax and enjoy, I believe in God. So the man upstairs is going to say, hey, you know what? I need you to relax. I need you to stop for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, okay. I have loved every single minute of this conversation. And I could talk
Likewise.
to you. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I think we actually could. I'm so excited to see you in person soon. I would love to know. I have two more things for you. The first one
Yeah.
is where can our listeners find you so that they can connect with you?
Yep. So that's on IG or LinkedIn and even YouTube. It's at the Navid Moosa. So Navid Moosa. Websites, navidmoosa.com. I'm also on TikTok as well.
Amazing. Thank you. I will make sure all of those links are in the notes below.
Thank you.
And this is my last question for you. It is a question I've asked every single guest that has come on this podcast for the last 3 years, almost 4 years of doing this show. And
Okay.
I always get a different answer because everyone has a different perspective. What if you could leave our listener with one way that they could create a little more happiness in their day every day? What would you be? What would you say?
I'm a morning person.
Okay.
So I like to wake up in the morning and just sit there at the edge of my bed and breathe.
Oh, I love that.
I breathe in with my nose, out my mouth. The last breath, if you will, which is the fourth or fifth breath, is a really big inhale and a really big exhale. That's it.
That's
Just that
beautiful.
every single day, just that little bit is to me is a big difference. I even do it throughout the day.
Okay, I love that. I'm going to try that in the morning. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I love that.
It's awesome.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast
Thanks,
today.
Simone. I really had a great time. Thanks for the
Me
invite.
too. Me too. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Happiness Happens podcast. If you love this conversation, please be sure to connect with both of us. Send us a message and let us know because we want to hear from you. And I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.